Hey, class, welcome back. Today we're continuing our Native Americans unit, and we're talking about the Iroquois Indians today. And we're going to go over the Iroquois, we're going to go over the Sioux, we went over the Cherokee, and we're going to go over the Navajo as well. Uh, all of them are kind of similar with what they eat and what they did as far as clothing and stuff like that. But they all had different little bit of differences in their cultures. And that's what we're talking about today, the Native Americans, the Iroquois Indians. So they were a league and confederacy of tribes in the northeastern part of America. And if you look up here, you have all these here. You had the Mohawk, the Oneida, the Cayuga, the Seneca. All these were parts of their tribe or a confederacy of tribes. And the Tuscarora joined in the late 1700s too. And the French named these people the Iroquois, but they call themselves the people of the Longhouse in their native language. And I can't say the name. I'm not going to try to. So, but the British called them Five Nations.
Who were the Iroquois? The Iroquois were a league of confederacy of tribes in the northeastern part of America. Originally, they were formed by five tribes: the Cayuga, the Onondaga, Mohawk, Seneca, and Oneida. Later in the 1700s, the Tuscarora tribe joined. The French named them the Iroquois, but they called themselves the people of the Longhouse. The British called them the Five Nations.
All right. So the Iroquois had a type of representative government. All right. Each tribe in the Iroquois League had its own elected officials, and they were called chiefs. All right. And these chiefs would attend the Iroquois Council, and each tribe also had its own leaders to make local decisions. So they had a type of government that it was rare. We've talked about governments in our class and stuff, and this was another type of government that they had. But they had elected officials just like we have elected officials nowadays.
How was the Iroquois League governed? The Iroquois had a type of representative government. Each tribe in the Iroquois League had its own elected officials called chiefs. These chiefs would attend the Iroquois Council where major decisions were made regarding the Five Nations. Each tribe also had its own leaders to make the local decisions.
All right, so they lived in what was called longhouses. All right, these longhouses. If you look right here at this picture, this is a longhouse, picture of a longhouse, and they were long rectangular buildings, and they were made of wood frames and covered with bark. And sometimes these longhouses were over 100 feet long. That's why they were called longhouses. Uh, they didn't have any windows, just a door at each end and holes in the roof to let smoke from cooking fires out. So, and each family or many families would live in a single longhouse, and they would have like dividers up to kind of give them some privacy, separate from using the partition they made from bark or animal skin.
What type of homes did they live in? The Iroquois lived in long houses. These were long rectangular buildings made with wood frames and covered with bark. They were sometimes over 100 feet long. They didn't have any windows, just a door at each end and holes in the roof to let smoke from cooking fires out. Many families would live in a single long house. Each family would have its own compartment, and that could be separated from the others for privacy using a partition made of bark or animal skin.
All right. So these longhouses were part of a larger village. All right. A village would have several longhouses in each and would often be surrounded by a fence. If you look right here, you can see the longhouses in it and you see the fence around. And the fence was called a palisade. Uh, Outside the palisade would be fields where the Iroquois would farm crops.
What type of homes did they live in continued? Longhouses were a part of the larger village. A village would have several longhouses which would often be surrounded by a fence called a palisade. Outside of the palisade would be the fields where the Iroquois would farm crops.
All right. And like many Native Americans that we've gone over, they ate a variety of foods. They grew crops such as corn. Corn was a main crop for many Native American tribes, whether it was Navajo, whether it was Iroquois, whether it was Cherokee. They all ate corn. They also had beans and squash. Most of those were regular things with every single tribe or every single nation there was. These three main crops were called the Three Sisters and were usually grown together. So women generally farmed the fields and cooked the meals, and they had a lot of different ways to prepare corn and vegetables they grew.
What did the Iroquois eat? The Iroquois ate a variety of foods. They grew crops such as corn, beans, and squash. These three main crops were called the Three Sisters and were usually grown together. Women generally farmed the fields and cooked the meals. They had a number of ways to prepare corn and other vegetables they grew.
All right. So what did the Iroquois eat continued. The men hunted wild game. They included deer, rabbit, turkey, bear, beaver, and some meat was eaten fresh and some was dried and stored for later, like kind of like a jerky, kind of like beef jerky or something. All right. Hunting animals was not only important for meat, but other parts of the animal as well, because they used the whole animal whenever they, whenever they hunted. Uh, they used the skin for making clothing and blankets, the bones for tools, the tendons for sewing. So they used every single part of the animal that they killed.
What did the Iroquois eat continued? The men hunted wild game, including deer, rabbit, turkey, bear, and beaver. Some meat was eaten fresh and some was dried and stored for later. Hunting animals was not only important for the meat, but other parts of the animal as well. The Iroquois used the skin for making clothes and blankets, the bones for tools, and the tendons for sewing.
All right. So the Iroquois clothing was made from tanned deer skin, and it would look something like this right here, what their clothing would look like. The men wore leggings. If you look right here, there's men wore these leggings, all right, and long breechcloths, while women wore long skirts. Both men and women wore deerskin shirts or blouses and soft shoes made of leather, and they were called moccasins.
What did they wear? Iroquois clothing was made from tanned deer skin. The men wore leggings and long breechcloths, while the women wore long skirts. Both men and women wore deerskin shirts or blouses and soft shoes made of leather called moccasins.
All right, so did they have Mohawk hairstyles? All right, the men of the Iroquois nation shaved their heads except for a strip down the middle. Yes, like this right here. All right, and if you know it's called a Mohawk haircut today, many of the Iroquois tribesmen, not just the Mohawk, cut their hair like this. Girls would wear two braids in their hair until they got married, and then they would have a single braid once they got married. But yes, many of them in the Iroquois nation had a Mohawk haircut.
Did they have Mohawk hairstyles? The men of the Iroquois nation shaved their heads except for a strip down the middle. Even though this is called a Mohawk haircut today, many of the Iroquois tribesmen, not just the Mohawk, cut their hair like this. Girls would wear two braids in their hair until they got married, and then they would have a single braid.
All right, so what part of America were the Iroquois Native Americans from? Were they from A, the South, B, the Northeast, or C, the West? They were from B, the Northeast.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
If they had the Mohawk, Oneida, Cayuga, Seneca, all together. There was 5 nations, remember. All right, number 2, what type of house did the Iroquois live in? They lived in a longhouse, B, a mountain house, or C, a beach house. They lived in what was called a longhouse. They were sometimes 100 feet long.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Number 3, what 3 crops were called the Three Sisters? There were 3 main crops that not only the Iroquois used, but most Native Americans used, whether it was Cherokee, Iroquois, Navajo, Sioux. A lot of them all had corn, beans, and squash. Definitely corn. Corn was definitely a staple of their diet.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
So the answer is C, corn, beans, and squash. Number 4, what was the Iroquois clothing made out of? Was it made out of A, cotton, B, tanned deer skin, or C, linen? It was made out of tanned deer skin. Remember, they used all parts of the animals they killed, and they hunted deer, the Iroquois did. So they used their skin for clothing. They used their bones for tools and their tendons for sewing. So much like other Native Americans we've talked about.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Number 5, what was the hairstyle many Iroquois men had? Was A, a ponytail, B, a mohawk, or C, a bun? It was B, a mohawk. It was B, a mohawk. They'd shave their heads and it's called a mohawk hairstyle nowadays. But most Native American Iroquois men had a mohawk.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
All right, y'all. That is all for today. Be sure you go on Schoology and do the turn it in on Schoology and get credit for it. And I will see you all next time with more of our Native American unit. You all have a good day.